welcome to another episode of the Intelligent Content Academy tutorial series, where we explore tools and technologies that transform content into intelligent content. I'm Marcelo Lewin, the founder of Intelligent Content Academy and a senior content solutions architect. Now, in today's episode, we're going to explore the structure behind Claude AI, and we're going to try to understand all of its components and how they relate to each other. Now, don't worry, this is not a highly technical tutorial, but I do want to get into some of the details of how Claude works because it will help us be better users. And also, as the UI changes in the future, and you know the UI will change and a lot of features will be added, we'll have the concepts down so we won't be lost. We'll understand all of the entities and components that make Claude important or make us use it in a better way. Now, before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that bell icon to get notified when a new episode is out. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, go ahead and hit the like button. If you didn't, send me an email, marcelo@intelligentcontent.academy, and tell me why. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Now, here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover the entire structure. Then we're going to jump into separate entities, such as users, conversations, documents, artifacts, and projects. Now, we're not going to do a lot of hands-on in Claude today. I will be jumping back and forth. I have Claude open here. So I will be jumping back and forth, showing you Claude and where some things exist. But it's really, today is more about the components and understanding how they work with each other. So let's start with the overall big picture of Claude. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here. So let's start with the big picture, which is how do all these items relate? What are all these items and components within Claude? So we're going to start at the top, Anthropic. Anthropic is the actual company that owns Claude AI. So when you go to Claude AI, that's owned by Anthropic. Now, Claude AI comprises of a couple of things. It comprises of multiple LLMs and different models, large language models, such as Claude 3.5 Sonnet, Opus, and Haiku. I think that's how you pronounce it. But it's also, Claude AI is also a chat. So here is what most people are going to be using. It's powered, as you can see, it's got multiple models. Now, keep in mind that they may add more models, versions will change, so on and so forth. But that is an important factor to understand, that when we talk about Claude, we could be talking about the large language models, or we could be talking about the actual chat engine. Kind of like with ChatGPT, right? You have ChatGPT, but it's actually powered by GPT models, and it's owned by OpenAI, right? So similar to that. Now, the Claude AI chat is powered by these LLMs. You, as the user, can interact or ask for requests, right? That's when we go in here. And so if I bring in, here's a request, a question that I asked about, I was working on today's presentation and asked it a couple of questions. You can interact to it or interact with it by giving it a request. Now, what Claude will do, the chat, it will provide you answers. It could also use those answers to then answer you again, right? It could provide your requests and your answers to give you more answers. Now, this is what's called a conversation or a chat. It's your request and its answers. Now, sometimes it'll give you an answer with a particular piece of information that is in line, but other times it'll give you that particular piece of information as an artifact, and it'll have a reference to that artifact in line. And we're gonna talk about artifacts in just a minute and exactly what they include, how are they created, and all that. But keep in mind that conversations are requests with answers, and those answers can either be in line or have references to artifacts. Now, the other thing you can do as a user right here is you can provide a document. So you can give it context, because the large language models have a lot of knowledge, but it may not have the particular knowledge of a document that you created, right? Because it wasn't trained on that. So you can actually provide these documents to it, and then you can start interacting with it and asking questions on those documents. Now, combining conversations, which are requests and answers, with the artifacts and all the external documents, you can combine all that into a project. So when I was working on this live stream, I created a project that had multiple chats, and you'll see all of that in just a minute. It had artifacts, it had my documents, so on and so forth. All of that can be combined into a project. Now, projects are available right now only on the paid accounts. Just keep that in mind. So on the other side, so that's the chat side. That's the app that Anthropic created called Claude AI. That is a chat app, right? That uses the language models that they created, also called Claude 3.5 Sonic, Claude 3 Opus, and Claude 3 Haiku. On the other side, you have an API, which provides programmatic access to the large language model. So what does that mean? Well, it means that third-party developers can create apps that use that API to get access to the LLM. And Claude AI Chat, in essence, I can't verify this actually because they may have, right now you can see here that I say that the Claude AI Chat is just another app that uses their API. Now the reality is, and I don't know this because they don't publish this, they could literally be having direct access, and most likely they have direct access to the LLMs directly, not through the API, so they have more access than third-party developers do. I don't know this, I can't verify this, but I would imagine since they're the creators, they're the owner of Claude, they probably have a bit more access than the rest of us do. But this, and that's why I have this line here, this is a breakdown of what Claude AI is, basically. On one end, you have the chat app. On the other end, you have the language model with the ability to access all of its functionality, or most of its functionality, through, or whatever they expose as the functionality, through the API, and third-party developers can create apps on that. So that hopefully gives you a pretty good idea of the entire structure. Just to reiterate, we have some major components here. You're one of the components, you as a user, me. Conversations is another component, which is made up of requests and answers. We have artifacts as another component. We have external documents as another component. We have projects as another component. Now, they may introduce new components in the future or new features, and I'm sure they will do that because, as we know, AI keeps changing and evolving. But right now, you have the basic components and understanding and the relationships between them to be able to withstand any major changes they do to their UI. So let's, in here real quick, I want to show you right here is sort of you, the person, and we're going to jump into that component and break it down and see what you can do. But we have the chat, which is that conversation, right? We have projects. You can have projects can have multiple types of documents. Documents can also have, let's see if we can go here, artifacts, right? These are all the types that we're dealing with. And hopefully that gives you a pretty good idea. We covered the overall picture, overall structure of it, right? Let's jump into users. What can users do? All right, so users have the ability to manage settings, and you have a variety of settings like your profile, billing, account information, things like that. You can also turn on and turn off feature previews. So you can enable or disable feature previews. Right now they only have latex rendering as a preview feature, but who knows, they may be adding more. You also have access to what they call the API console. So if we go back to here, to access the API, they give you a console with a bunch of stuff. Today we're not covering that at all because today is for non-technical users and we're talking about sort of the big picture of everything. But within the console you have a dashboard, you have a workbench, you have some settings, so on and so forth. then you can create and manage conversations, and you can create and manage projects. These are the things you have full control over, are your conversations and your projects. Okay, so we covered settings here. So if you go, you have settings here, which gives you access to a variety of things. Billing information, account information. Okay, and then we have, here's where you have the API console, which it's actually going to open up a new window with your workbench, and then you have a variety of settings that you could do there as well. So we're going to go back and then feature preview. So if we go here, we have feature preview, which you can turn on and off. Right now, like I mentioned, they only have one. That's pretty much it there. And then we have all of our chats and our projects. Those are the things you can create. So let's jump back to here, and we'll go back and we'll move on to the next thing, which are conversations. So conversations are really interesting in how they work. So if we start at the top, we have a conversation right there. Conversation is made up of many user requests. User requests are questions you post in Claude, right? So if I go into, let's see, well, let's start a new chat, and we'll say, I'm doing a live stream right now on Claude AI. Tell me, give me an overview of what you do. And then we'll click on this, and this is our conversation. This was my request. Here is my answer that it provided. So if we go here, we have user requests, and the request is processed by the large language model. Remember Claude. In this case, it was processed by, right here, Sonnet. Okay. So it was processed by Sonnet. It generated a response. Okay. Now, the response, it didn't create artifact. It generated an inline response, right? If we go back, you can see that everything is inline. We have no artifacts here. So it can also generate an artifact. So for example, I could go back and ask it another question. I say, give me the top 10 features of Claude 3.5 Sonnet as an artifact. So now it's actually creating the response. It created an artifact, which is just a document in this case. And I'm going to close the artifact. You can see right there, there's a reference to the artifact, right? So here it's giving me the response. It created an artifact and placed a reference in the response to the artifact that I can open. So if we go back to here, you can see error responses can be artifacts. Now, if you recall, where do we put it? I think we put it here. Answers have inline references to artifacts. Okay, so keep that in mind. And that was the reference right there, pointing to that artifact. Okay, so let's go back here. So now we have the response with an inline that has reference to an artifact that it created. And it also has another, and we have the previous response, right? If we close this artifact, the previous response just has inline only. Cool. So the LLM can also use any documents. The large language model can also use any documents that you upload. So for example, right here, you can say upload docs or images, or you can screen capture. You can do a screen capture of anything. I'm not going to upload a document right now because I was running out of actually, even though I'm the professional version, sometimes it says you've used too much of the system, and it stops me, and it charges the tokens, right? So I don't want to do that right now because I don't want to run out of tokens. I've been using it quite a bit this morning, but you can upload a document just by clicking on that, right? You can upload a document and then upload a document and then ask questions of that document. So right here, where are we in conversation? Your documents or content, right? The LLM can also use your documents, but what's interesting, because it now has access to this artifact, it can also use that artifact as well, right? So why don't we say, let's go ahead and close this up. Let's go ahead and start a new chat. And we'll say, can you tell me, we'll start with this. Can you tell me a summary of what the object blah blah is? And it's saying it doesn't have specific information to the object blah blah, of course. So now let's do this. Create an artifact document with a short description of a fictional object called blah blah. And I know this is so not creative, but it's okay. So we're going to do that. So now it's creating this artifact document with a description of the blah blah object. Perfect. It has features. Okay, wonderful. So now, because we have this artifact, and it does exist, and it's in the context of this entire conversation, we can say, please. We don't have to say please. I just like to be nice. Summarize, or tell me about the blah blah object. And there you go. Now it has access to the artifact that we just created, right? And now this exists. So this is actually, this object is like a document as well. So if we go back here, you can see that the LLM can also use the artifact and can also create the artifact as we just did. And then it used this artifact to give me a summary or what the description of that blah blah object was in line. Okay? So now we kind of see that loop. And I'm going to explain these dollar signs in just 1 minute. The other thing we could do is we could give it feedback, right, on responses. Each response, we can give it feedback and say, yes, this is good. Now, one thing to keep in mind that the feedback does not affect any of the responses at all. So this is, a lot of it is based on my research I did in their own documentation, right? Things may change. But right now, based on their documentation, feedback does not affect responses. It is only used to improve the system overall by Anthropic. Okay, it doesn't even affect your project or any of that. You can say this was good, this was bad. It won't affect the LLM. It's used for the overall system later on. Okay, now user requests, which are made up, which also have responses, right? And documents that you upload, and inline information, and artifacts, this is all considered the context. So when we talk about the context of this chat is when you ask a question, the LLM will consider the entire context and used all of this information to give you an answer. Remember, that's why at the beginning, the context, if we go back here, the context had no artifacts. So it had no idea about the blah blah. I love that name, the blah blah object. It had no idea about it. But once we said, hey, create a fictional description for this document and keep it as for this object, and name it blah blah, and keep it as an artifact, now the context build up on all the other requests, and now the LLM had actual access to that information. So when we talk about the context of your conversation, of the chat that the LLM uses, we're talking about all the requests, all the answers, all the information that's in line, all the artifacts it created, and any documents you uploaded. All of that is the context that the LLM uses to generate responses. Okay? So that's a conversation right there. Now, what I wanted to point out here is the dollar signs. These are the places where you get charged. When you request something, it converts it into tokens and you get charged tokens. When it gives you a response, you get charged for that response. When you upload documents, you get charged for those documents. When you get a response and it creates an artifact, you already got charged for that artifact because that's part of the response. You won't get charged for the artifact separately, right? Because it's just part of the response. So those are the three main places you'll get charged for. It's the tokens of the request, the tokens of the response, and the tokens required to convert your documents. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, so that takes care of conversations. Let's go back to this here, and let's go now to documents. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in, and I'll try to get to them. Now, when you upload documents, you're uploading documents. Let's go ahead and close this up. You're uploading documents through Claude AI chat. Once you upload the documents, it actually extracts all the text. So it's not really working with the documents. So it could accept a variety of types. For example, HTML, JSON, text, CSV, Word documents, PDF documents, rich text documents, ODT documents. The plus means many more, right, that it could do in the future. Same with code files. They can accept a variety of code files, a variety of images. Now, the image doesn't do text extraction, obviously. I'm not sure how it processes images. It does the image processing in a different way. But all of your documents will be converted to text. And the text is extracted by some sort of process. And then the LLM, remember, whichever LLM, will use that as text in conversations and in your projects as well. So keep in mind that even though you upload files, those files are converted and the text is extracted. So you're not really working, or it's not really working with those binary files. If it's a Word document, it's not working with those Word documents. And we can see, I think I have here, yeah, right here. Yeah, here's a document that I uploaded. If I click on the document, you can see that it extracted all of the text. That's how it's working on it. This was a full PDF that had some images too, but it only works with the text right here. Okay. All right. So that takes care of documents. Let's move on to our next thing is artifacts. So here we are with artifacts. All right, so artifacts, if you recall, let's go back and we'll go into, yeah, here we created this blah blah artifact, right? It's just a document. And you can access your artifacts right here in the chat controls. Again, I'm showing you this, but you know, in 6 months or in 3 months or in 15 minutes, who knows the way things are. This may change and may not be accessible up here. But right now you can access here your chat controls and then look at all your artifacts right there. Okay. So I can click on the artifact and see the artifact there. Now, what is an artifact? So let's look at here for a minute. So this is you again. We're back to you. You make a request to Claude AI chat, right? That request, it will use the LLM. I'm kind of reviewing stuff. I know I'm repeating, but it'll use the LLM to generate a response. And then we go back and we continue this conversation cycle. Okay, with the response, it'll check how to respond. So let's go here. So should it be an artifact when it's responding? Should it create an artifact? Well, these are rules that are documented in Claude right now. Is it significant and self-contained? with at least 15 lines of content. That's one of the things. If it matches that, it will create it as an artifact automatically. Is it something you are likely to want to edit, iterate on, or reuse outside the conversation? Again, it'll create it as an artifact. Is it content you are likely to want to refer back to a user later on? It'll figure that out, and if it is, it'll create it as an artifact. Or did the user specifically request for the artifact to be generated? Remember, in this case, if we close this up, create an artifact document. I actually specifically told it, create an artifact document. So it created it for me. So if any of these things happen, if none of those things happen, then it'll just create the information in line. But if it will happen, if some of these happen, first it'll check if it already exists. If it doesn't exist, it generates a new artifact. But if it already exists, it will create a new version and update it. So if we go back here, let's go into, here's the blah blah document, right? I'm going to say update the blah blah document with a longer description of the object and add 3 more key features. We'll just do that for now. So now it should go back to the blah blah document and it's updating it. Okay? So it's making the description longer. It's adding, see, that's doing its mysterious behaviors. I love this. This is great. It's doing a bunch of stuff. We'll let it finish doing that. Okay, so now it added more key features, so on and so forth. But I told you that if it exists, it'll create a new version and update it. So we know it updated it, but where are the versions? Well, you can see right here, version 2 of 2, way at the bottom. So if I go back, that's version 1 that we had. This is version 2. So the first time it updated it, or it created it. The next time it just created a new version and updated that version. Okay? That's important to understand. That's why you see multiple here, because it could create. Now, what types of artifacts can you have? Well, you can have all sorts. You can have code, documents, HTML, SVG images, mermaid diagrams, React components, latex equations. That is if you have the latex equations feature on. If you recall that was over here under feature preview, latex rendering. Okay, so those are the types of artifacts. So that's artifacts for you. Very, very cool feature that I actually use quite a bit. So let's go back. So we've done artifacts. Finally, we're going to end it. We're going to end the stream with projects. So let's look at projects real quick. So projects, if you recall at the beginning, if I go back to structure, right here, projects is really just encompassing conversations, artifacts, and external documents. That's really all it is. So let's go back to projects here. So projects have a couple of things. When you create a project, you have some metadata. You can give it a name, you can give it a description, the visibility. So if you're in a work plan, you can make it private or you can share it with others, and you can give it custom instructions. Like you can tell it how to answer all of your requests, and because all of this affects the entire project. Now, projects has many conversations. And conversations, remember, is a chat that has a request and a response, and it's got the artifacts, and it's got everything we spoke about, right? And a chat can also have their own documents that are private only to this chat. And I say that because projects also has what it's called a project knowledge base. This project knowledge base can be made up of documents, so you can upload documents, or you can create artifacts and add it to the project knowledge base. Now what happens is, once you do that, all conversations, not just that one, but all conversations in that project have access to that project knowledge base. So that's really cool. So you can keep a project knowledge base of a bunch of documents and then have conversations and start new conversations, but they can all access that project knowledge base. Now, if you have a document inside a chat, that document will only be available to that chat. So the context for this chat, right, for this particular chat, is going to be all the information in that chat, plus this document, plus all of these documents. That's the context. The context of this chat is going to be whatever conversation happened there, plus this, not this document. Now you understand context, right? You're understanding the context and why it's important. Okay, so let's look at projects for a second here. We'll go to projects. I just have this Claude structure project. And you can see I have a variety of chats, right? As we mentioned, we have chat, lots of chats that you have. You can start a new chat right here. You can add documents to a chat. And then you have your project knowledge base, which you can add a document, or you can create a artifact and add it to the knowledge base. So for example, let's see, sharing Claude conversations. Can you create an artifact of the top 10 features in Claude projects? We'll just do that for now. Okay, so now it's going to create this artifact, but this artifact only exists right now, only exists here. It does not exist here. So this chat will not have access to that document, to the artifact, right? If we want to make it have access to it, we have to put it in the project knowledge base. So you can see right here, we have the actual artifact. To add it to the project, we're going to go here at the bottom, add to current project. We're going to, it's called top 10 features of Claude. I'm going to go ahead and click on add to project. It was added to the project. Now, when we go back to the project, there it is, top 10 features of Claude. Now, all of my chats, I can go back to this one or this one and this one. I can now reference this document. Okay. So there you have it. We have a project with metadata. Oh yeah, let me show you the metadata for the project. Let's see if we go into, where are you? Edit details. Here's the name, the description that we mentioned. And then here, set custom instructions. That's this here. And because I'm not a work, I don't have visibility. I'm not in a work plan. I don't have the visibility. It's all private to me. Okay. Alrighty. And then of course you can have many projects, right? There are limits to how many projects, there are limits to how many documents, there's a whole bunch of limits, and I'm not even going to mention them here. You just need to know there are limits. You need to go into the documentation because this will change constantly. And today this may be valid, tomorrow it may not be. So that's going to constantly change. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I think that's it. We've covered a bunch of stuff. We cover structure, users, conversations, documents, artifacts, and projects. I hope this gave you a pretty good idea of how Claude works, all the pieces, and how they interrelate with each other. And hopefully, with those fundamentals with you there, you'll be able to then adjust when there are new features, when things are changed or updated. Yeah, I hope this helped you. And stay tuned for many more. I'm going to be doing other streams and tutorials on Claude, so stay tuned for those. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. And remember, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click that bell icon to get notified when a new episode is out. And if you enjoyed the episode, hit the like button. If you didn't, send me an email, marcelo@intelligentcontent.academy, and tell me why. Finally, when you have a moment, go check out the website, intelligentcontent.academy, for more episodes. So until the next one, cheers, everybody.